Hi, and welcome to a Small Medium at Large podcast. I'm your host, Gail Heisen, bringing you intimate interviews beyond normal boundaries. I want to thank all of you for subscribing, liking, sharing, sending us your wonderful comments. Stay tuned. We have lots of more exciting shows, and we're trying to be a variety of different guests here from all over the world. So, let me tell you a little bit about our two special guests today. Today, we have René Jenkins, who is a professional musician, ceremonial sound practitioner, healing performance, and recording artist from Sonoma, California. For more than 30 years, René performs sound healing concerts, blessings, and ceremonies for individuals and special groups throughout the United States and internationally. While embracing the ancestral wisdom from cross-cultural anthropologists Angeles Arrien, Kashaya-Pomo, elder healer Lorin Smith, and renowned South American sound healer musician Tito La Rosa. René raises consciousness vibration through sacred sound and intention. As a professional trombonist, René has backed many established artists in the industry, ones that I consider rock royalty, such as Natalie Cole, Johnny Mathis, The Temptations, Mary Wilson of the Supremes, Joe Williams, Ja Levi, and Greg Allman, to name a few. René says, I play with the intent of reuniting others to the cellular memory of oneness and wholeness. You can view his website at vibetherapy.org. This will also be in our description, but this is for the people who are only listening. Janay Cipriani is an amazing clairvoyant and clairsentient intuitive medium, angelic reader, and sound healer who uses her gifts to offer guidance, insight, and energy healing. Together, René and Janay play ancient and contemporary instruments for individuals and groups to support their highest growth with vibrational light and love. Let's welcome this beautiful couple here today. Welcome.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
It's a
Thank you for
pleasure
having
to
me.
see you. I have to tell our audience that I have been a follower of Tito La Rosa's music and sound healing and flower ceremonies for many years, so that I actually have heard René perform before, but only recently we actually got to meet each other, and I experienced an incredible sound healing with him at his home and with Janay. So I just want to say I'm really excited to have you here on our podcast today. So
Thank you, Gail.
I have a question that I always ask, and this question goes to both of you, so you can each take a turn. And it's my personal question because I always like to know, as a child, did you have a passion for music and the healing arts? And if so, did your family support your choices? Or was this something that came upon you later in life, maybe through some incident or experience? So I always just like to start with that beginning, and then I have lots more questions about the work that you do.
Sure. Well, I have to say, at around 4 or 5 years old, for me, I had this feeling, I didn't know it was a gift, where I could be in a room with people and I could tell the person who was under some distress or emotional pain or even maybe physical pain. And when I was very young, I was visited, I believe, by a spirit from the angelic realm. And when I tried to tell my parents, of course, they were just telling me it was Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or those things. So I learned very early on to sort of squelch that understanding and visions. And as I grew up older, my mother told me to sort of like keep my knowing to myself. So, and I don't think she was meaning that in any, negative connotation, but I learned early on I was very quiet about it. And it wasn't until probably in my late 30s that I had another awakening. And I knew that this was my path. And I started opening up and being more forthright about it. And then I met René and opened up to sound healing. And it just blew my mind how everything just opened up, my gifts of being able to see, and see the energy of the music movement whenever he picked up one of the healing instruments. So for me, my passion, was always there, a little bit undertow. I never spoke about it really, but when I could see people needed healing or something, I would just sort of go sit by them. And my mom said when I was little, I used to pull my chair over and just put my hand on them. So, later on in life, she accepted this in me, and she just started telling me stories of when I was little and what I used to do. So, yeah, and I considered it a great privilege to be able to have met René and worked with him and now partners with him. So,
Yeah, she's my fiance.
The meant to be thing, I think.
Yeah, I knew right away after 17 years, it was like that. This is the time,
Yes.
Right. It's fast for me.
so hopefully that answers your questions on
Yes,
my
it does.
journey.
And I find that these are very common. I like to do this because I like to see when people have had a very similar story. In that the fact that you knew when you were 4 is very important, that you knew something was different there. And it's really good when we can touch back to that childhood and say, oh, yes, I felt comfortable being with elderly people, or I felt comfortable in the presence knowing that there was somebody that was not feeling well and I would sit next to them. I think that children are more open and, they haven't been squashed yet. So René, how was yours?
Well, also at a very young age, I'd say maybe around 6 or something like that. I remember just looking up at the stars in front of our house, um, and just feeling this infinite quality. Shut this down. And this purpose, like I wanted to save the world, is what this thought was. And then I thought, well, in order to do that, then I must have to be a politician because they can affect the laws and the whole scope. Because what was coming over me was this overwhelming sense of compassion, and that no matter the illness, or if someone was crazy out of their mind, that I would be able to, through love and just understanding, that I felt like I had that depth of empathy, that I would be able to melt any obstacle in that way. It was later in life when I would, well, maybe a few years later, where I would find myself singing in the garage in a way that would make tears come out. And it was like a grief, a sadness, but it felt good to connect in that way. And I remember thinking, this is really strange behavior. What am I doing? Why? But it just felt good that I could bring myself to that. And all the songs on the piano that I would play would be this kind of melancholy-ish, almost sad songs. But it was a way for me to connect. I think it was later on around high school where I decided that I was going to go into music healing or music therapy. And I worked with an autistic kid at the time, and I was trying some things with him, but all he wanted to do was get on the other side of the piano with me and start playing. And so I thought, it's separating this piano in me, and I can't really, I didn't feel effective. So I was playing trombone professionally for years, and ran into a friend of mine who had bought didgeridoos, and brought them back from Australia. And he said he didn't know how to play it. He had to learn how to breathe in circles. And I said, circular breathe? I know how to circular breathe, through just a trombone, fiddling around. And before that, in the bathtub as a boy, I was playing with the bubbles and doing the kind of thing, and learned about circular breathing, but I didn't know that's what it was called. When he said that, I said, hey, I know how to circular breathe, and what's a didgeridoo? So I went over to his house and taught him how to circular breathe, and he showed me how it was supposed to play, or supposed to sound. Because, first time you play a didgeridoo, I have it over here, it's this higher pitch, boo, a toot sound. And he was like, no, lower, lower, lower. So I started playing that, and what's interesting about the didgeridoo, as soon as you start to play it to somebody, they will open their arms and feel the vibration. And it was pretty obvious as I would play the didge. I'm not going to play it in this moment, but this is the
Feel free to blow out a sound if you feel like it. That's
right. So as soon as
beautiful.
you bring that low vibration to another person, it's like energy. It's on. It becomes like a very healing experience. So for me, after this is a long story, but
That's
that
good.
that was the intro, and I played that for 10 years for different groups with Angeles Arrien's groups and some of my other men's groups that I was in. Some doing plant medicines and other things. And I was always getting this feedback that I should do it somehow as a career or as a vocation of sorts. And I just didn't think it was grounded. It didn't sound, what do you call it? Didgeridoo healer and that kind of thing. So it took me a while, probably 10 years before I heard the term sound healing. And that was around 2003. And what's interesting is about that same time is when Janay, really opened up and started doing readings and healings for people accessing her innate abilities. And it was probably a year or two later,
A year.
2004 or five, where we we met officially, and it became really apparent that as I was playing, she was seeing what was going on in people's bodies. She was seeing. You should
Like,
probably talk
well,
about that.
basically, what was happening was I could see their chakras opening up to certain people for certain instruments, and I could see a pixelated energy almost, and it would just sort of roll right into that area, and you could see that that person needed whatever he was playing, whether he was playing his F sharp flute, which is for the heart, and at that time I wasn't aware of what it was, but I could see it go right into the heart. Or some of our other instruments, when we play them, you'd see the chakras start to open up, and it was just I just realized, this was just second nature now because he was just bringing that energy through.
Yeah. So
And
for
then the instruments, being our allies, knew exactly where to go and exactly what to do. And it was just a beautiful, what I'm seeing it was just, to me, it was just profound and really beautiful. And I was like, oh,
it's the perfect compliment,
I
really.
was to say where one is playing the music, the other having the visual, and the client or person is lying there. What a fantastic combination, because you're getting double information.
right.
And a lot of this has to do with, which I'm just getting more information and learning about, is having to do with frequencies. And that
Mm-hmm.
so many of these different vibrational frequencies affect us or can be replicated, like a vibration of the earth or a vibration of trees, or these things all have some sort of a frequency they give off.
Yeah.
And you're recreating the frequencies through this music, and that can be very, very, very healing.
Yeah, it's
And
interesting.
also, sometimes their ancestors would enter when a
mhm.
certain frequency was played, and they would come and give information sometimes to the person that needed it. So I would relay that at the end if they'd given me something specific.
Yeah, that was really interesting for me because, in my position, I feel like I'm orchestrating energy or animating spirit, and saying, "Oh, this is for this is Earth energy with the didgeridoo coming up through the feet," and I'm doing all this thing as what was taught by my teachers. But here's Janae coming in, going, when you went uh, such and such. and this happened. And I was like, really? That happened? You know, that was so interesting because I was thinking, here, I didn't turn off my
So
phone.
this will bring me to my question, which has to do with the teachers and whether both of you want to answer, whichever way. But I was thinking that we would start with the teachers you had, and if we could possibly begin with Tito La Rosa, or you can, just as long as we speak about him at some point there, and whomever else you'd like to tell us about that you learned about sound with ancient ancestral instruments from.
Sure. I think the first, when I first started playing didgeridoo, I was taking a class about, it was Angeles Arrien's class, The Fourfold Way, through her apprentice Nancy Feehan. And I started bringing the didgeridoo to our classes, and then on vision quests, and I would do that with Angeles Arrien. But at that same time, we were introduced to a Kashaya-Pomo man named Lorin Smith, who's a Yumptha, a healer, an elder. And through visiting him, he was doing these things called Weya circles, where he would sing the sacred word Weya, which means nurturing, healing energy. And as he would describe it, he would say that the nurturing, healing energy is all around us and moves through us, especially when we're offering or sharing nurturing, healing energy. So he would sing Weya in any rhythm, any cadence, and any melody that would come to his head. And since I was there with my didgeridoo, and he was like, you know, like I think excited that he had someone to play with. He would say, play something, you know, for this person, you know, and then he would sing different chants. It wasn't just Waya, but sometimes it would be Waya, 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 Waya. And it was like giving and offering vitality to the person. And for others, it would change into more of a lullaby like energy, a soothing way away, 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 away. That kind of thing. Go lay down, you know, you're tired. And he would work on people and ask me to play. So that was a great first thing for me to be around an elder, an indigenous person who was recognized at a young age that he had this healing energy.
Mhm.
And he gave me lots of different lessons that were just vital and integral to how I do this work now. Um, so with Angeles Arrien, it was more of this cross-cultural studies, anthropological information that had to do with compiling indigenous information, wisdom, and what it meant to be human. And, you know, these archetypal forces, the directions, and how they relate to our humanness, our warrior nature, our teacher nature, and our healer nature, and our visionary, that we have all these selves, these archetypal forces within us to develop. And sometimes we're very strong developed in certain areas, and other areas we need more development. And like if I needed more energy information about being a leader and that warrior energy, I would walk in the direction of the north in a vision quest. And I would pay attention to the thoughts, the animals, the feelings that I would have, like I'm tracking everything that was coming into my field as information related to my intention to understanding my warrior leader nature and about showing up and being present for the things that are important to me. So it was those kinds of teachings that just make practical sense, you know. And that was one of the biggest things that she would say to us is walking the mystical path with practical feet. And so to me, it wasn't until, you know, when Janay and I started doing this work, well, I had already met I'd already met Tito. I'm kind of jumping ahead.
It's okay.
Um, so the next big teacher, after playing for like 10 years, finally thinking, oh, I'm a sound healer. That's what I do. I'm going to invite some people on my table. We'll hold an intention where they would like to go, and then I'll guide us both into an altered state with rhythm and sound and using Wea. And the sessions would go an hour and a half, and people would come off the table asking if I slipped something in their drink, because they would go into the altered state and they would see ancestors and they would see primordial images, and um, it was fascinating. And this was without any, assistance from plant medicines, but
Ye-
it's similar form as we've been shown from our ancestors. Um,
you-
so I meet Tito, and Tito starts giving me all these instruments. Now he's a Quechua Indian from Peru, or yeah, that area, South America.
Mhm.
And Tito has been credited as re enlivening, reconstructing the ancestral music of Peru. And being a man who worked in archaeological circles, um, the archaeologist suddenly, will realize that Tito had an aptitude for playing these ancient instruments, these old nautilus shell pan flutes and things. And what Tito would do, he would take these instruments and take a walk out in nature and listen to the natural sounds, because many of the pre-Columbian instruments were about mimicking the sound of nature. Um, so like the Shakapa, which is a very leafy instrument. These are made of bamboo. It can be used as an energetic broom where you're
Could you
clearing
hold that
energy.
up just so we could see it before rattling, just to see it? So is that all bamboo leaves tied together?
Yeah,
That's a freshly made one, and this is what it looks like when it's dried a little bit after a while.
I love the sound of that, and they're both very beautiful.
yeah.
So,
When they have different sounds when they're green and they're dry. But
mhm,
so to me, after playing with Tito, and he was giving me instruments and telling me what they were for metaphysically. Um, Might as well jump into this.
Yeah,
This goes into a
sure.
little thing like the patuto or conch shell. Come to find out, it's a very very old instrument from our ancestors. Many cultures played the conch shell, but in Peru, it was played as a communication device to to connect with the tribalets from the mountaintops in the Andes. So as it was played, and the nature of how it's made, that spiral
mhm.
shape makes the sound carry great distances. So metaphysically speaking, he said it was a call to spirit to open communication with the heart. In doing so, um, it can be used to open ceremonies.
Mhm.
It's an initiatory instrument when somebody's about to take a step in their life, whether it's from puberty into manhood, or marriage ceremonies in India. Seven virgins would play the conch shell to celebrate the union of a marriage.
Mhm.
So, and it was called the death trumpet. When you heard boo boo, it meant it's time to go to battle. And so
Mhm.
it has an interesting in our lineage of our ancestral memory. There's a lot of that can be brought up with the sound of the patuto or conch shell or the pu. It's called the pu in Hawaii. So this is just an example of Tito was giving me these instruments and saying this is how they're used. Uh, más o menos, like sometimes it's, this, sometimes it's this, and then I would see him apply the sounds uh, in different ways, in different situations with different people.
Mhm.
And so I realized it's still an experiment that's ongoing, but it's nice to know how the instruments have been used in our ancestral history. Yeah.
I am so happy to hear this because before I ever do a little shamanic blessing on someone when they come to my house, I don't know why, but I always blow the conch shell first.
Mm.
And I just felt like it was my like announcement, or this is what we're gonna do, or clearing the. Now, when you say it's to open the heart, I feel I'll have another intention when I'm blowing that it's also opening the heart for the beginning of us to do something together that's, special and intimate.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
even in Shiva was like when Shiva would blow I believe that's the right goddess. Oh God. Uh,
Sheep.
it, the sound of the conch shell would make evil run for the hills. It was something that could not stand the vibration, the lower vibration could not stand the sound of the conch shell. So that was often played with that intent to bring in, that energy. So
that's I love what I learn when I have guests on my show.
yeah, yeah. So keep playing that. Keep playing that. Play. I think all of us need to play it now. I mean,
Yes, would you mind just blowing one sound out of it for our listeners so they can hear, especially the ones who aren't watching on YouTube, they can hear the sound on the podcasts.
sure, sure, sure.
Okay. That's beautiful. It's like the wind.
Hmm.
I've only made like a very loud sound. It would be wonderful to learn how to make that softer, gentler wind mode sound coming out
Yeah,
of that
pulling that
shell.
through.
Yes, that's
It's magical,
beautiful.
I think.
Beautiful, beautiful.
You
So,
don't have to know how to play trombone to get a
yes.
sound, but there is a little bit of the musculature that gets developed even with the didgeridoo.
That's the umbrature. Is that what they call it? The umbrature?
Armature, yeah, armature,
Capture.
yeah, armature.
Yes. So, well, yours has to be very well exercised, like it's been working out for years. So it can go into any any
Yeah,
instrument and use that. So back to Tito La Rosa. He was then I was looking at things on your beautiful website, and I was just blown away by the little flute that I think it was him who gave it to you, or it was Ailish, I'm not sure, but it was the hollowed out bone of, is it the
Yeah.
condor, I think?
yeah. The condor bone flute. Yeah.
Yes, and I thought in it, I was reading something about that there's a place in Peru where the condors go to die. So it's not like you've ever hurt the animal or anything to acquire this bone. Just have, it's been taken by someone who knows that that's what they found. And was it Tito who gave you this instrument?
Yeah, this
How,
was the first instrument he gave me, and it's a very high pitch. It has a little crack in it, so I'm not playing it very much.
Right.
But it's got the little bevel. I don't know if you can see that, where like a canna, different flutes have this canna. So this has a very high pitched sound to it. I don't know if it would make a sound right now because
Uh-huh.
it needs to be repaired. But there's other instruments I have that, like the dinosaur bone ocarina, that reaches the same stratosphere of sound, and it has a similar feeling to me. Um, but the condor, I mean, there's other instruments that are
You should, yeah,
the
that one.
the condor quill. These come from the quills of the feather. This is pelican here,
Feather the condor.
and these are the condor quills, which are the ends of the feathers. I don't know if you the quills of the feather.
I have
Right.
Oh, there you go. That's better.
And is it only Tito who makes this? Because that was I had never seen anything like that before when I met Tito and he was playing that. I
It's
didn't
a
know you could
wonderful
take
story.
quills.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tito said he had a dream of this instrument. And in the dream, he was playing it with condor feathers. And when he came out of the dream, he acquired condor feathers and he snipped them to, the different pitches.
Mhm.
And later was in a museum with his wife and saw one as an artifact behind glass.
Wow.
So he thought, oh, the dream came from my ancestors.
Mm.
And of course, in Peruvian cosmology, the condor represents the upper world, or the Hanan Pacha. Pachas are worlds. So this upper world is our cosmic self, and that's where the condor dwells. So this middle world is the Kai Pacha, which is the world of the jaguar, which is about presence, being here now, this moment, this body, this time. And the Ukupacha is the inner world, or the world of the serpent. So if you think of our DNA and our ancestral uh, knowledge, where we've come from, some things that we carry forth are beautiful, and the vision from our ancestors is very helpful and beautiful. And other times it can be a harmful pattern that we're here to break. And
Mhm.
that's part of Angeles Arrien's teachings. And so a lot of my teachers, they dovetail into each other, as far as the meaning and how we approach um, other humans that are in need of rebalancing or reattuning. So we can offer the energy to their a person's upper world, or their Hanan Pacha, to invite that energy through the person, through us, their own energy. And, Janae can obviously see if there's any blocks that are in that flow, and she can help with bringing an instrument to help clear that energy. It's sort of like a faucet that you turn on and you want the flow just to go through, and where it kinks up might mean that there's, we need to bring more attention, more weight to that area.
The
And
body.
so Janae is great to have there. I can feel, she sees, and she can give the person information that can be very specific, which is really great. To Great ability to have
I'm
that.
very excited for when we get together for the three of us doing sound healing. I'm really excited and looking forward to it. Um, I I I was wondering about um, the historic metaphysical properties of the ancestral instruments and how they were used in the other cultures. Like you have native flutes of the North, Central, and South America. We talked about the conch shell. We haven't talked about the rattle, or I don't know what a shakapa is or a chimu. And
That's
I
the
was
instrument
hoping,
we showed you.
oh, those, that's the shimu?
No, Shakapa.
So, okay, so that's the shakapa. So if
Yes.
you could speak about the rattle and the whistling water vessel, and I believe it's called a Silbadora, is that the way you say
Or
it?
the Chimu. It's also called the Chimu water vessel.
A chibu?
Yeah, the Chimu
Chibu.
or the
Oh,
Silverdora. But what you touched upon was what they had the metaphysical healing properties of these instruments. This instrument actually embodies all the elements:
mhm,
earth, air, fire, water, and then a fifth element, which is vibration and sound that moves it. Because first, this is made of clay from the earth, then it's fired in the earth. So
right.
there's earth and fire, and then the air displaces. There's water in the chamber, and then when you tilt, it displaces that, and then you have your fifth element, vibration. So a lot of times when we're looking at a person, and either they might need all these elements to bring them back into whole, so you offer this to their body, and a lot of times we play these instruments directly on their bodies. But there's another thing that happens, which I find happens, I would say 80 to 90% of the time that the chimu is played, their heart chakra opens really wide.
Mm,
And it's almost like a calling of their heart and their soul to come home to the heart. And it's an interesting thing, because when I was young, and my teachers, you talked about teachers, mine were the angels, the angelic realm, really, for me personally. And they were always telling me how important love was. And they used to say to me all the time, fear was the absence of love. And then they flipped it and said, but love is the absence of fear. So when they were trying to get me out of that place, when you're young, growing up, and all little things happen to you,
mhm.
they would try to school me, but it was almost always in love. And so sounds like these, when you're in that meditative state, can just bring your body back into balance, but also the heart and the soul coming home.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I find this a really magical instrument to play.
It
It's
even has that sound of
Come
"come home."
home. And we played, so most of the time, with two chimus, like a call and response,
uh,
which is a lovely thing, because it just, I mean, it's amazing to watch when everything starts to open up. But yeah.
Hey, you notice how even the sound of this instrument, how it brings you inward, where other instruments are very external.
mhm,
And, Angeles would talk about the masculine dynamic transmittive energy. It's our energy that goes out. It can be like prayer can be very much an exclamation, in a sense. This is what I would like to have, or like assistance with. And meditation is more of an inward or receptive, feminine, um, magnetic energy. And instruments are the same way and can be played in with dual, um,
The rattle.
yeah, like
Yeah.
the rattle, exactly. Um, the rattle has the sound of water or wind, but right,
yeah.
that sound is a little more percussive, a little more. I see it as more drawing me in, washing.
And the water throw, we're made of our water is very important. And so these instruments sort of vibrate with the water that's in our bodies and the frequency. And it's also almost like the blood, too, going through the veins.
Yeah, that's
And
one of the first sounds we hear.
that's why children they like rattles, because it's what they heard in the womb,
It
so
can
the
sound like
sound.
mama's breath. When
Yes.
you're in it, close your ears and you breathe in. It has a similar sound as washing, and even the blood, like Janay was saying, going through the veins.
Mhm.
So
We talked a few minutes ago when we were asking about the teachers you mentioned the four directions and you spoke about north being the area you were going in when you were on a vision quest and it was your warrior. Can you talk about the other three directions and what they symbolically?
Sure. And this can be found also in Angeles Arrien's book. She's now passed, but it's called
Mhm.
The Fourfold Way. And she would teach about the four directions, the archetypal forces. So the east is the direction of the visionary, and
Mhm.
that is the one who sees, who's connected to our life dream and our life purpose. And, it's easy to get knocked off center, especially with expectations when you're raised. You got to go to school, you got to get a career, get a job, get a family. You got all these, certain things. You may find yourself going, but I was a dancer or I wanted to sing, but and what happened to that? And not that you can always return to these things, but walking in the direction of the east would be getting in touch with the archetypal force of the visionary, right? And it's interesting because that's the direction of the rising sun and the rising moon and stars. It's the new day.
Mhm.
So the visionary is the one who sees the life purpose and life dream. When the sun sets and the moon sets and the end of the day, that is the direction of the west for us. Um, maybe for everybody. And and the direction of the west is the direction of the teacher. And the teacher is also the direction of the ancestors. You think about letting go, the end of the day, what the things that you're letting go of. Um, Ancestors teach us about letting go. They're the biggest uh, teachers of that because they've done the ultimate in letting go. They've had to let go of all of their attachments, um, everything that we hold dear. We at some point will become ancestor spirits and have to go through the process of letting go. So it's about trust and being open to outcome and not being attached to it, the outcome. We can have a vision and have what it is that we're working toward and building and creating, but the West, ancestors, the teacher talks about holding it open, being open to outcome, not being so attached, trusting in the outcome. So you can see how that's really practical, very good information. If you feel
Yes.
like you're a person that needs to learn about, letting go more, maybe it's you're holding too tightly, you might walk in the direction of the West in a vision quest and see what comes up for you about letting go and trusting and being open to outcome. The South is the direction of the healer. We already spoke of the North as the leader warrior. You can't always be on the warpath, fighting all the battles. You at some point you need to be able to relax, to heal your body, to heal your mind, your spirit, your soul. The the South is about paying attention to what has heart and meaning, what is most dear to you in your heart of hearts, and connecting with that. The four Angelus would talk about the four-chambered heart being open-hearted and clear-hearted, full-hearted and strong-hearted in the things that you do, not doing things half-heartedly, not doing things with a weak heart or a confused heart, that kind of thing. So you face the South and you you know that you have this healer within you, the archetype of the healer. So what does that look like for you? And to cultivate that energy within yourself, is it taking more walks on the beach or at a favorite tree in the forest where you can be still and receive the Waya, the healing energy, so that you can return to balance, right? So those kinds of things that that I work with and find new meaning in her wisdom of our ancestral past. You know, what these indigenous people thought is, is so relevant to who we are today. You know, the North is often about respecting the right use of power and not just owning your own authority and why you're here, and honoring yourself as as a sovereign being, but also supporting those who also are using the have the right use of power. And it, as our leaders, as we look around as our leaders, and there's that fork tongue thing that's going on, where on one side you think, okay, they're telling the truth, the other side is like doing this other deal. It's hard to trust. This is where, you know, and the more we develop that balance within ourselves, we can recognize and support the leaders that are speaking the truth, that are being their authentic self, and being the medicine, being your original medicine. So Angelus would talk about each of us carrying original medicine. And for Janay, you know, it's so apparent. It's different than mine, but it's so complementary. Where she's really wanting to assist somebody. She's your natural giver, caregiver, and so I know when I'm doing my thing, she's doing her thing, and it's stronger together.
And you also bring
Balance is
in
very
the
important.
masculine and the feminine together.
Yeah, that's right. Balance is
And
extremely
that balance is, I think, in much in need these days. Instead of it being
That's-
extremely masculine or extremely feminine, having both of them together is a beautiful balance.
well, and I think what's going on right now is our world is out of balance. You know, so
Yes.
we need we need to have that feminine side, that, but it's not that this goes away. It's like that we're together but in balance with one another. And I think once we come back into that natural balance, you're going to see a lot of things shift. I personally feel that way if that happens, because it's like Renee was talking, if you have the warrior, but the warrior without the heart can't really be a good leader. You know, you need those two things marrying together.
Yes.
And when you
Yes.
have your vision of, you know, manifesting a world where there's more unity, more cooperation, which is really how the natural world works, um, in relationship with itself, um, and are able to let go. Like, maybe my vision isn't the way to go. Maybe there's a better vision. Maybe there's something that's going to manifest that speaks to a higher vibration and a higher truth. But I'm going to stay connected to what's most meaningful. And right now, it's my family and those who I love, and kind of go from there. I have a vision of community, that we're supposed to be more together,
Yes.
working together. Yes, we're going to have differences in how we think, um, and how we think it should be done. But if we're all staying here, what's most meaningful, and find the commonality, I know that we're going to find our way. So, as my dad would say, another great teacher of mine, was, what is mine to do? What is ours to do? Um, it's going to be different for each of us. Some of us have a larger stage that we're working from.
Well,
And
the idea that you're doing this through sound and music, it takes away the barrier of language, because music is universal, and everybody, it doesn't matter if the person laying on your table does or doesn't speak English, or speaks Chinese, whatever their language is not going to matter, because they're experiencing something that doesn't have words connected to it. It's all sound, and that's a higher vibration. And so I don't, it seems to me like 15 years ago or something, I didn't hear that much about sound healing. But lately, I have been hearing so many things about sound healing, but I don't know that some of the people who are out there and promoting their sound healing classes and things have the history and background and experience that you bring to the table, because we're talking about 30 years worth of study with this. And I think that's very important that you're bringing something that's, this isn't something you started yesterday. So it's really, I mean, that's really a wonderful thing to be of this teaching and level of knowledge of something that I really also truly believe is a healing method. And the more healing we can have out there, the more we can bring people to be in a better space, to be who they are out in the world. So
That's right.
you two are doing a very, very beautiful job.
Well, thank you. We've been guiding others that are looking to express their medicine through sound.
Mhm.
And so we're very much encouraging people to, and we see that a lot. I mean, we did start at a time where we would say we're sound healers, and they'd say you're a sound
What?
what? Now we say we're sound healers, and they say so am I. So it's a very different world now. But even with the crystal bowls, or you see people buying all the gongs and all the bowls and really getting their setup going, and then using their voice, I think it's beautiful.
Yes.
It's a thing that you can connect, because each of us, in truth, we're instruments. We're divine instruments. We have the ability to feel very subtle things, whether it's a kiss of the wind on our cheek, to the texture of fine material, to also communicating with our eyes, with our voice, with our body language, wea, or love, forgiveness and compassion, all those things that we're able as instruments to express to each other and support each other. So to me, it's really important that we express our medicine, our true medicine, our authentic selves in this moment. It is time for us to show up, be that warrior leader, be connected to what is most meaningful to our hearts, and have create the vision that we see. How do we see this in the world? It can be hard to make a living uh, doing this thing. So I don't encourage you to quit your day job. Uh, don't make it a situation where you have to uh, do it. We've had to learn to be in balance with that.
Mhm.
But heal, certainly, call upon your ancestors. What are those harmful patterns that need to be broken? And do it. Just show up and do it. Use any instrument, rattle, sing, drum.
Because there's many different forms of sound healing. I mean,
Yeah.
ours is based on the Peruvian cosmology, and we
Yeah.
do a little bit of a different style than other people might do, but they all have their place.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
you can go to whatever you find resonant and resonates with you.
Do
So
you do this with each other, or did you do this with each other in the beginning and you still do this, or do you find like you can just for
we just
healing
ditched
each
it the
other?
other day.
What's that?
Yeah.
Renee just gave me a didgeridoo healing the other day because I was
Oh,
getting a little tummy upset. So
wonderful.
um, he
So
helped me that way. And
And when I was going through my own healing crisis, I would lay down on the couch, and Janae would use her gong, and the wash, it would just clear my whole system. And I would go into the altered state, and then all the different resonant frequencies from the gong. Um, it's very powerful. These tools that are available to us. There's ancient tools and there's modern tools.
oh, the
you have a
Koshi
modern
chimes.
tool
Koshi
we can
chimes,
see.
yeah.
We have
Now these are available for people. The Koshi chimes.
they're
Oh, I
I
love
find them
these.
I find these amazing because they're such they just have such an ability to heal. It's a little hard when I'm doing it over the
I find it an angelic sound, these bells. Oh, that's so lovely. Those are Japanese made, right? Are they Japanese made?
These were supposedly made at the base of the Pyrenees Mountains in France.
Ah,
Um, they have the bamboos around. They have a beautiful hand blown. I got these a very long time ago. I don't know what the newer ones are being made from, but has a beautiful hand blown glass in the base, and then the spirals the metal spirals or silver spirals that
It's just such a huge sound for such a small instrument.
yes.
It's always amazing.
And it feels like the heavens to me when I hear that sound.
and there's usually four of them: earth, air, fire, water. But I use these two in particular because I find it opens the body up in a different way.
Oh,
Mhm.
I was thinking of a
The
lyre.
crystal lyre.
Because we were talking about new instruments that are available.
Yes,
And, you
I
know,
saw that on your website and I wondered what that was.
this thing is incredible. The sustain on it goes for a long time, and it's
Ah,
just pure tone. This crystal lyre.
and it's
It's
all
lovely because
crystal?
yeah,
Yeah.
all crystal.
Is that a quartz crystal or?
Yes,
Yes.
and the gentleman who makes them, what's so amazing about the crystal lyres, because you can hold it right over the body and play, so the vibration
Mm.
goes right in. It has a very pure tone. So
Oh,
it's, I'll just play a few notes.
oh, that's beautiful.
It's
Very
amazing because
beautiful.
it just
Yes.
fills, it's filling the room.
I don't know how well you hear it over there,
But
but
I hear the resonating sound that it keeps going after you hit it.
Yeah. So these are, to me, they're like it's like opening up portals, worlds. Uh, Very much an upper world instrument, but it's also resonating. This whole area when you feel it around your body. There's, as it's been explained to me, many of the stringed instruments will resonate with the fibers of the body. Maybe the lower frequencies or even the drum will resonate the bones. And with the skin of the
Right,
drum too, right? There's
right, like
different.
a skin.
We talked about the rattle with the circulation, the circulatory, and
Mm.
when the instruments are played around the body or
on.
are on the body in a particular rhythm, you can bring a person through entrainment into more of an altered state of consciousness where
Yes,
you're out of the beta, out of that thinking regular normal state of consciousness that we're in, dropping more into like the theta, um, yeah, alpha,
yes.
theta, deeper you go. And I think that's just healing. If you can guide people into those slower realms where you're not in high analyzation mode, and able to feel, you get more connected to your body. There's a cascade of neurochemicals that end up infiltrating, through your body and giving yourself an ability to just deeply relax and to heal. We have this within us. Other teachers of ours talk about the quantum field
Yeah.
and how we can affect that, and the entire pharmacopoeia that's available to us. It's just about accessing these states. I think that's why the plant medicine is becoming really big again, becoming more in the mainstream, so people can go into those states of consciousness more and more legally now. And
Yes,
but you don't need necessarily the allies of the plants to assist you. You can do it yourself through your own resonance, through your voice, through drumming, through creating a rhythm that is consistent for you to ride in like a boat down the stream.
after I met with you, a couple days later, there's something that I never thought could ever happen, and I'm not going to sing it on the show or anything, but these words came to me in a song, and the whole drive back, I was coming back from Napa, I just couldn't stop repeating these two words that are made up words, and that had this feeling like after I kept doing it, I just felt such a calm, good feeling inside myself. And I was so worried that I couldn't remember what it would be when I'd stop, because it just, I was driving and it was just coming out and coming out. So then as soon as I got home, I took a Post-it note and, phonetically wrote out the two words I was hearing. And I'm looking forward to working with you with that, because I feel like they always say, oh, you hear a song, and I'm like, I never heard a song, but I finally heard something. I heard something.
Yeah, a lot can be done with just the tones. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be a song per se, and you don't have to be a singer. If you can talk
Right.
with
I
the song,
called it a song, but it's just a two sounding tones or
yeah.
whatever.
And I say
Yes.
that's medicine. That's good to work with, and so we will work with that.
I'm glad I have the Post-it note, because if I wanted to bring it back like that, it came out of nowhere. So I didn't know how to like save it.
Perfect.
I understand what you feel, because when I was working with Renee, I had similar experience, and a lot of times when I'm working on people, that phrase will come out of me. It's another language. I don't know what it is.
Right.
I always thought I would forget it, but I didn't. And it would come out, not on everyone, but on certain people it does. And so it's
Soul
and
something.
it feels very, to me, it's like very deep within me, like an ancient knowledge, I feel.
Mhm.
Well, I'm
And
looking forward to discovering that with you. So we're at our hour, and this is when I always ask our guests if there's any. Let me just make sure I've asked all questions. I asked about that, yes, and we didn't talk about plant allies, but that's up to you if you feel like a little plant ally before we finish. And if there's anything else you want to share, or if you want to end with a little bit of how do you say it? Weya. I found that very profound when you sang that. Or an instrument, or any which way, word of wisdom, or anything you'd like to share, and then we'll close.
Sure.
where are they? I'm sure.
God, the choices are so many. There's all these instruments here.
It's okay. We're very open.
Well, what do you think? You call
Maybe
it.
the two of you together could play,
Well,
or
I was
Want to
thinking
choose a
Renee
flute?
might play
Sure.
the F sharp flute, because it's so beautiful.
okay.
And then if you want to do your Waya, you can end in that too. I'm gonna do the
Sure.
F sharp.
So we invite people, always before we sound, to just see themselves in complete wholeness, complete wellness. What does it look like to be in optimum health, optimum spiritual, mental, emotional, physical health? In that image that you see yourself, just see the energy of the sound go into you as completely whole and well.
That was beautiful. I want to thank you so much for joining us. And I want our listeners to know that if they're interested in experiencing what an incredible sound healing experience is, especially if they've never done it or if they've done it already, that again, they can go to your website at vibetherapy.org, vibetherapy.org. And if you go there, you'll find ways to contact and see all the many different things, such as ceremonies, house blessings. There's many things that this beautiful couple offers. We want to thank you today for joining us on a small, medium, at large podcast where we're sharing intimate stories that heal. We look forward to seeing you again. This is episode 54, and we're just happy that you joined us today and hope that this music has given you a very calm and wonderful feeling to start the rest of your day. So thank you. And thank you to my family for producing my show, posting it, and doing all the wonderful work they do for me. So thanks to my son, my daughter, my husband. I really appreciate them helping me with my podcast. Have a wonderful day.
Bless you all. Bless you to all your listeners. Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was really a blessing and honor for us to have you too. So have a wonderful week, everyone. And we will talk to you again in a couple of weeks with our next show. Have a great, fabulous week.